Hey there, Trek nerds. This is Best of Trek, Worst of Trek. I'm your host, Dustin Wing. Starting at number 689, we have Infectious Majel DTF, or Fascination. In an episode that I should have probably ranked lower, Lwaxana Troi comes to DS9 to bug Odo, but she's going through Betazoid menopause and affecting most of the people on the station, making them obsessive attracted to other random people. Jake Sisko fawns over Kira, Dax tries to seduce Ben, and Quark rubs his lobes on Keiko O'Brien. If you like over-the-top sexcapades, maybe this episode is hokey fun, but I declare it a wasted episode of Trek. Discarded like an oily rag at number 688, Yar in the Tar, or Skin of Evil. This episode feels mean-spirited on the part of the producers after Denise Crosby asked to leave the show, having only filmed half its first season. I mean, they wrote Bev off at the end of season 1 and brought her back. Anyway, the Enterprise gets a distress signal from one of its shuttles carrying Deanna Troi and a pilot that crashes on a planet. When they arrive, they discover a sentient oil slick that won't let them rescue the crashed crew members. It demonstrates its power by killing Yar, and the away team beams up, and Crusher spends a long time establishing the "I did everything I can, but she's dead" theme. Upon subsequent encounters with the life form, Riker is enveloped in molasses for a while, then spit back out before Picard does a Kirk-style moral of the story speech to distract the creature while they beam the shuttle crew aboard. When in less than one season of television did Yar have time to form deep attachments with everyone including Wesley to make them all a personalized obituary hologram? This one was the beginning of the producers going out of their way to write characters off a show permanently when they asked to leave. Techno-babbling its way to 687 is Broken Things, or Samaritan Snare. Pulaski tells Picard he needs his artificial heart replaced, and he refuses to have it done on board so no one will gossip about him having surgery or something. He accompanies Wes Crusher to a starbase where he's taking entrance exams for his transplant. They have a nice conversation that drags on and eat sandwiches. Meanwhile, the Enterprise receives a distress call from a race of opportunistic, simple-minded folk that acquire technology from other species through deception and brute force. When Geordi beams aboard to fix the rubber band on their ship, they take him prisoner, and Riker makes Geordi bluff them into thinking he's giving them weapons, when really Riker is just running the Corbomite maneuver, and it works to get Geordi back. The captain almost dies on the operating table, and apparently Pulaski is the only doctor in the sector capable of finishing a heart transplant gone wrong. And the Enterprise arrives just in time for Picard to find out the whole ship now knows about his transplant anyway. Being culturally appropriated, we have number 686, Kirok, or the Paradise Syndrome. This one has a tragic ending that otherwise is nothing but filler. The Enterprise peeks in on a pre-warp civilization that resembles tribal Native Americans whose planet is going to be destroyed by an asteroid if the Enterprise doesn't get to the deflection point in time to keep it from hitting the planet. Kirk falls into an obelisk with strange writing, and Spock is forced to make a difficult choice to leave the captain or miss the asteroid rendezvous, and spends time he doesn't have explaining to McCoy about time he doesn't have to explain it. They go and fail to get to the asteroid in time and burn out the warp drive and many other circuits, but spend the next 2 months staying just ahead of the asteroid at Impulse. Before and after the attempt to divert the asteroid, Spock is uncharacteristically dismissive of others around him, telling him what's what. Meanwhile, back on the planet, Kirk wakes up inside the obelisk with memory loss and finds a way outside, where he's met by some women from the pre-warp tribe. After saving a life in the village, he's elevated to the status of medicine chief, and the people consider him a god, except the old medicine chief, which starts a random fight with Kirk, and Kirk wins. He thinks his name is Kirok and ends up getting one of the villagers pregnant. Toward the end, when the people renounce him as their god, they try to stone him to death and only end up stoning his baby mama Miramani to death. When the Enterprise makes it back to the planet months later, just ahead of the asteroid, they beam down, Spock figures out the obelisk can deflect the asteroid, and Nurse Chapel beams down and injects a random hypo into Miramani before even examining her. They deflect the asteroid with the alien obelisk, but McCoy can't save Kirk's love because she's lost the will to live or something. In a weird note, the credits of this one start rolling before the outro music, and there's no Enterprise sailing into the great unknown. Breaking down gender norms at number 685 is Trip gets preggers, or unexpected. When the gravity plating goes offline while Archer's in the shower, Enterprise detects a cloaked ship feeding off their wake. Trip offers to fix their problems for them, gets disoriented by their atmosphere, gets better, then plays around in a holodeck. When he gets back to Enterprise, Phlox informs him he has a nipple and an embryo from putting his hands in rocks on the holodeck he visited with one of the female engineers. Enterprise finds the ship again, feeding off the wake of a Klingon ship this time. Archer finally rolls a critical success on a speech challenge when he convinces the Klingon captain to spare the ship because Trip's pregnant. The Klingons laugh, Trip gives the unborn baby to the mother, and pieces out. Introducing Dr. Pulaski at number 684. Troy gets preggers, or the child. The Enterprise loads strains of a deadly plague to carefully transport to another planet for study. On the trip, an energy being comes aboard and impregnates Troy with a child that she has, and it grows and dies within a few days. It wanted to experience life as a humanoid, but its type of energy causes growth in one of the strains of the plague being carried, and sacrifices himself to save the ship. Deanna says some lines weirdly in this one. At one point, they're considering jettisoning the plague samples into space to protect the crew, but somehow that's too dangerous because it could come in contact with another society? Why couldn't you just eject it into space, stop the immediate danger to the lives of the Enterprise, and use the tractor beam or something? 8-year-old me asked myself this question when I first saw it, and it's just one of those lines of dialogue to further a weird plot line about a fast-growing child that kills itself in the end. There's a really good discussion about the ethics of abortion, and Picard makes it clear the rights of the mother are the most important factor in the decision, so the episode gets something right. Don't worry, Deanna, nothing bad will happen to any of your future children for inconvenient plot purposes or anything. Speaking in tongues is number 683, Shale, or Terra Nova. Enterprise investigates the first human-settled colony that stopped communicating with Earth 70 years before. Because of pride, they never asked the Vulcans to investigate. Now, Enterprise finds out what happens to the kids from the Lord of the Flies if left alone for 70 years. Turns out an asteroid irradiated sections of the planet and left only the small children alive in caves. They grow up believing Earth had destroyed the colony and now Enterprise is here to finish the job. They take Reed hostage before Archer tries to prove their noble intentions by treating the oldest surviving colonist and then helping a trapped one in a pool of rising water. Archer helps them resettle to a part of the world unaffected by the impact. This one's very reminiscent of the TOS episode Miri, but it's handled a smidge better. Getting knocked out of the ring at number 682. Machismo, or the Icarus Factor. This one's quite the hokey slow burner with just a pinch of character development for Riker and Worf. When Will is offered his own command for the first time, his father comes aboard as a civilian advisor for Starfleet to brief him on his possible future command. We learn Riker and his father are estranged and that Pulaski almost married him in a Florence Nightingale effect years earlier. Worf acts more like Worf than usual until Wes figures out it's the anniversary of his Klingon bar mitzvah and he needs pain sticks stat. So they recreate the ceremony on the holodeck and make Worf feel better through pain. In the end, Riker and his father reconcile their differences over Ambojitsu, the ultimate evolution of the martial arts, or a poor ripoff of American Gladiators. Riker decides that it's more important to be the first officer on the Federation flagship than the captain of an obscure ship on a deep space assignment. Getting its fix at number 681. We have Dope Wars, or Symbiosis. This whole episode is just a giant late 80s anti-drug PSA. The Enterprise responds to a distress call from a group of people that barely know how to operate their ship. Turns out they're transporting what they think is a vaccine from a neighboring planet to theirs. But Crusher figures out it's not really a vaccine, but a narcotic that they only need to take the edge off the withdrawal symptoms of its actual medical use that cured a plague 200 years ago, but has left the world addicted and dependent on the other all the time. In the end, Picard decides not to give them spare parts for their ships per Prime Directive interference. While this is better than any 80s or 90s anti-drug ad, it's not a great episode of Trek even with a message. All the scenes are extra long and stretched for time. The dialogue feels poorly written, and the two pharmaceutical rep dope pushers are smug one-dimensional characters. I guess that's still the way with all pharma reps today.
Computer. That program is available.
Thanks, Majel. Majel. Thanks, Majel. Majel.
Repulse shuttle has cleared docking bay 3.
Thanks, Majel.
That procedure is not recommended.
Majel.
24. 23.
Thanks, Majel.
Correct. Klingon rite of ascension chamber.
Thanks, Majel.
Does he recognize us?
Thanks, Majel.
I should never have given you all that candy.
Majel.
Didn't they teach you any manners in Starfleet Academy?
Thanks, Majel.
Level 23, Section 8.
Thanks, Majel.
Dance with me, Odo.
Thanks, Majel.
It's my gift to you.
Majel.
Should take another look at Jadzia's test results.
Thanks, Majel.
I wish you'd tell me what's bothering you.
Thanks, Majel.
Now, Doctor!
Thanks, Majel.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Majel.
That's ridiculous. That's impossible.
Thanks, Majel.
Satire in Trek! Satire in Trek! Our ship, it is broken.
Somebody broke it.
This is a nipple.
How many nipples have you got? Nipples, laddie. How many?
Just the usual 2.
It's gonna implant eggs in your throat, dummy!
Obviously, the pregnancy must be terminated.
I'm going to have this baby.
You are having it. Tonight. It's coat hanger o'clock.
Go back to the oversight.
Got the rest of us?
Take that one and don't track back. Bunny? Bunny where?
You're feeling better.
Yes, thank you.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
What I can't understand is why anyone would voluntarily become dependent on a chemical.
Just say no.
This is where